It is 11:36. You are listening to the Mid-Morning Talk on Salam Media with me, Mari Mukwanda. World Hijab Day is an annual event founded by Nazma Khan in 2013 with the purpose of encouraging women of all religions and backgrounds to wear and experience the hijab for a day and to educate and spread awareness on why hijab is worn. Being a Muslim woman, especially a Black Muslim woman, is not without its challenges, and although we may not experience or we may not share our stories as often about Islamophobia and xenophobia in South Africa, there is still so much that is misunderstood regarding the hijab. And I am going to be joined by some great women, coaches, activists, etc., who are going to be sharing their experiences. We are going to be unpacking and discussing the challenges that we face as Muslims in South Africa, or rather Muslim women in South Africa. And one of the guests of the panel discussion is Pumelele Sakina Dulamo. Some of you may know her. She used to be part of the marriage show here on Salam Media, and she's here to share her experience as well and helping us to unpack the challenges. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, Sister Pumelele, and shukran for joining me.
Wa alaikum salam. It's always a pleasure to be part of the show.
Happy World Hijab Day to you. You're looking snatched.
I had to represent, Thank you very much. And happy World Hijab Day to you too.
All right. Now, before I get to you, we are waiting for a few of our, of our other guests to join us. But I'd like to share some experiences of people, of sisters, the challenges that they have faced in South Africa. And this is from a post that I shared on Facebook. I am not going to be mentioning names. One lady says that she is South African. She's a Zulu South African, and she has experienced xenophobia and racism, especially being a hijabi. She has been mistaken for a foreigner. And in an incident where she was with her husband, the immigration officers wanted to take her, and she was surprised as to why do they want to take her. I mean, she is a local. And okay, we have one of our guests who is on the telephone, who we will get to her shortly, but that is just one of the challenges that is mentioned here, and we will get through them as we go on. Racism and hate speech is another. The most common one with me, this is a comment, the most common one with me is the question of, are you Indian or are you married to an Indian? And I'm sure this is a common one with many of us. Another one says, none. I get respected for hijab in Cape Town, but as a child, Muslim kids would tease me for wearing hijab. Now that's funny, because we want, like, why would Muslim kids tease you for wearing hijab? All right, let us unpack our discussion today. I do believe we have Karabo on the line. Assalamu alaikum, Karabo. Karabo, assalamu alaikum.
Oh, bismillah. My phone was on mute. Thank you for having me, and assalamu alaikum to you and listeners, and Sakina and the other sister as well.
All right. Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Shukran for joining me. All right. Let us start with the discussion, and I'm going to start with you, Sakina. What does hijab mean to you?
I think for me, hijab, means the typical answer. It means protection. It means honor. It means grace, because for people that respect the hijab, always when they see you, they expect graciousness from you. It means identity, easily when you see me in hijab, you already know that I'm a Muslim woman. It means classiness, it means being regal, being a respected woman in the community, it means honor, and so much more, that's just basic, just the basic or the start of hijab for me.
It means being exotic because somehow Muslim women are exotic creatures. So when you wear hijab, it's even worse. You are even more exotic. People want to know more about you. All right, Karabo, what does hijab mean to you?
Well, I think I'm probably gonna add on to what Sister Sakina was saying as well in terms of
Yes,
it sets us apart. It's an identity. It's like I'd say uniform for us. Just like the
yes.
women wear their badge, just like brownies wear their colors and whatnot. It's a uniform and very symbolic of my crown. I would say it's not just a cloth. I just wrote a piece the other day that it's not just
Mhm,
a cloth. It's for me, it's a symbol of my crown, and also how best I can obey Allah as per the instructions that He has given us for our protection, of course. And if you look and observe, when a woman does clothes like fully clothed, um, you get different responses from the street. It's very rare and seldom that you'd get a condescending or disrespectful whistle
mhm,
from guys when you're walking the street in your hijab, other than when you are dressed normally, maybe in shorts and things like that. Obviously, not taking away anything from those that don't adorn themselves in hijab. So to me, it's very symbolic of my obedience to Allah. It's also symbolic of my crown as well, because if you actually look into the history of why the hijab was ruled upon us, in most cases, apparently, there was an attack on women.
mhm,
And the, the cloth has always been worn from centuries one to another. So depending on how you wear it, you can be classed as a slave, and therefore women working at. So then it was said that, let them know themselves like the royalty so that they can set them apart in order to
mhm.
abuse them as well. Because I understand they go to the booth and help themselves, and as they would come out, they would attack you. So it's also for our protection, like
All right, then there's a child crying in the background. Who else child is it? Can you please mute your mic? All right, we will
of
give her a
future.
moment there. And when you mentioned Karabo, that you don't get those condescending whistles anymore. But for me, it's like it has kind of shifted. When you wear hijab,
Mhm.
it's okay. It's not condescending, but now you get the salams. Assalamu alaikum, sister.
Yeah, yeah,
Assalamu alaikum, mashallah, and it's
yeah,
no longer the
yeah,
whistles,
yeah.
alhamdulillah. But now it has changed from one thing to another. But alhamdulillah, it also opens up
Alhamdulillah.
doors for us to teach people about Islam and to teach
Most
them about
definitely.
why we wear hijab. Now, there are challenges that we face as Muslims, especially Muslim women in South Africa, and those who choose to cover as well. Just some of them I've shared earlier from a post that I made on Facebook earlier, where one of the sisters faced xenophobia and racism. And
Mm,
also hate
mm.
speech. Now, according to you, what are some challenges that you have faced?
Um, well, more than anything, it caused me a big deal of identity crisis because
Mhm,
I didn't know how to interpret the rules, and I didn't know how to be comfortable in it. To such an extent that brother that was initiating me into the deen and everything would laugh at me like, "Stop dressing like a grandmother." Because
mhm,
you said that because I would just wear long dress, long sleeve top and whatnot, and just look a bit rugged and downtrodden, honestly, just for the sake of covering up myself. And then again, also having to come out into my community dressed in the way that I do, which is not so much of a norm to how people dress. So I'm not surprised when people call us during that, things like that. But that's an issue for another day. But for me, it became an identity crisis for me, how to find myself in my own style into this way of life, into this way of dress, and also sticking to the rules and pleasing Allah more than anything. It was just an identity crisis, honestly speaking. It was a long journey. It was a long journey for me to find myself in it and be comfortable in it and confident in it to just walk out of my street. Previously, you never see me walking out of the house when I tied the duke in should I call it Arabic or whatever. I would just tie it in a turban waist with I don't and whatnot. So you get ostracized from your community as well. So it's much of a hardship, right?
Mm-hmm. All right, I'd like to bring Anisa in on the conversation. I do believe we do have Anisa Mazimpaka joining us as well. Assalamu alaikum, Anisa. Shukran for joining us.
Wa alaikum salam, and shukran for having me.
All right, now, what are some of the challenges that you have faced as a hijabi in South Africa?
To be quite honest with you, I haven't faced many challenges from the outside world per se. I think mostly what we face is from within the religion itself. But for
Yeah,
me,
yeah.
it's mostly a spark of curiosity with the conversations that I have. Um, but I think one thing or a misconception that is out there is, or the questions that the hijab sparks most of the time living in South Africa is one, if you are Indian, and
Mm-hmm.
two, if you are married. So those are just two of the questions that come up, and I think there's a lot of education that needs to, come about with such conversations. The sister did mention things of xenophobia, and all of those things. And I think those are the realities that most Muslim face. But for me, it's just an issue of the curiosity that is sparked as to why we wear hijab and all of those things.
Mm-hmm. And speaking about curiosity, they will also ask you, well, if you're wearing a hijab the way we are, they'll ask you, okay, so why are you not wearing this one? Or what does this one
Yeah.
mean? So, we have to explain to the people that this means this and that means that. Pumelele, speaking about the challenges, have you experienced any challenges?
I think from when I was young, because in the township, most people identify Islam with an Indian religion. So most of the people will call you, like the Indian derogatory word. I can't say it, obviously,
Yes.
and they will also call you ukok, or they say, why are you covering your head? Are you ukok, or, and such things. So when I was growing up, those are the challenges that you are still a young girl, and you are still learning, why do you have to wear hijab? And then when you go out into the world, you sort of have to be an ambassador now, because you have to fight off people. And sometimes you get angry because you feel like, why don't these people understand? Why are they ignorant? But I feel then again, it's up to us to educate people, because people fear or tease what they don't know about. But I feel especially in South Africa, more and more people are educating themselves about Islam, and they understand that it's a religion, not just something identified with only one type of people. But yeah, those are the challenges that I have faced when I was growing up. And as well, when I go to school or to varsity, most of the time I am always the only hijabi in the class, or the only Muslim in the class. So I constantly have attention drawn to me. Everyone wants to see, is the Muslim going to get 100%? Is the Muslim going to do this? There's always, I can't hide, I can't be invisible
True.
everywhere I go, people always expect, and sometimes as well, it becomes an emotional challenge, because as I said, when you're in hijab, somehow you have to represent Islam, you have to be an ambassador. So you always have to maintain grace. Sometimes someone makes you angry, and you have to be in hijab with your emotions and not express that anger negatively, and just calmly tell that person that, you know what, I'm not happy with you doing this. So those are the challenges that you always have to be conscious of yourself, that now you are in this gracious dress. You cannot shout at people, you cannot scream at people. You have to you know how the Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam always says, you know, like, be watchful of your anger, be watchful of your anger. So I feel when you're in hijab, you have to be even more watchful of your anger because people are watching at you. They won't say it's Pumelele who got angry. They're going to say it's that Muslim woman who got angry and went crazy. You know, so those are the challenges that I continuously face. It's just, you always just have to be an ambassador, whether you are in the mood or not.
True, and unfortunately, the actions of others are looked. I mean, other people's actions. We are judged by other people's actions as well. That's what I wanted to say. For example, the issue of terrorism. Everybody will look at a Muslim as being a terrorist and label us as being a terrorist, even though they don't even know what terror and terrorism really is. But unfortunately, Muslim equals terrorism. Anissa, back to you. The hijab has been ostracized heavily in Europe. And what more do you think can be done to raise awareness and ultimately combat this issue?
You know, unfortunately, us living in South Africa and living in Africa and us, you know, going for this whole decolonial project and not using Western standards to actually police our Islam or hijab. But unfortunately, those that are on the other side of the world do face, you know, heavy retaliation when it comes to expressing their deen. My direct answer would be to ensure that it is engraved in their laws. Our Muslim sisters have been doing a wonderful job that side to, you know, raise awareness. But more than you know, raising awareness and taking it the legal route, I think it is very important that not just in the West, but also here at home, for us to be active in spaces and not just active in spaces that, you know, deem our attention, our immediate attention, for example, a direct attack on our religion or the way that we dress, but be active in spaces that have nothing to do with Islam, you know, be active in sports, in debates, in all of those things, so that we are represented. And I think one of the sisters spoke about representation very well. And I think it is very important that we are represented in these spaces so that when these issues do actually show up, it is not the first time that they hear of such, but we do have representation across the spectrums. And obviously with representation comes influence. So yeah, that's just how we begin to build our cases.
I think it is quite challenging for Muslim women to take up these spaces of representation. For example, let's look at the media. When you're working in the media, not Islamic media per se, but media in general, you are not supposed to have or you are supposed to have a certain look, like your hair is supposed to be a certain way. You can't wear hijab, or you can't do this and you can't do that. So now taking up such spaces, it's like how do we take up such spaces and be proud to wear our hijab? Here's a comment by a sister who said, they once snatched off my hijab, my head in snatched it off my head in high school. Some clients refused to be helped by me and requested other salespeople in shops like Discam, Clicks, Mr. Price. I'm labeled as an annoying foreigner, not knowing that I speak 8 official languages, and I just keep quiet. It's worse in a male-dominated industry, but alhamdulillah, the hijab continues to be my safety shield and armor, and I'm not going to compromise it for anyone. So even in places of employment, you know, you can't even wear hijab because people do not want to be assisted by you. So what do we do then? How do we tackle these challenges? Let me get to you, Karabo.
There's a brother who often reminds me that sometimes we take the attributes of Allah for granted, like the Creator, for instance. I think where there's no foundation or very little of a platform, we shouldn't be too shy to be forward thinkers or proactive. For example, I mean, if you can't get a seat at the table, create a table of your own. So
Mhm.
if anything, I know it's going to be very difficult. I'm just an idea, a dream. So some people just seem like a dream. But honestly speaking, all great things have to start somewhere. And we have to and be with this until we see it through. If none of us start, we need to normalize hijabis all around the world and Muslim women to be part of the race of the world and active in the world. We have to start somewhere. We have to create our own platform. We have to create our own foundations with this. And we who need to be active in our community. We also need to do that, not just in Ramadan for our own fellow Muslims. We page the neighbors to participate in they have. And so that no carrying a dog around, you know. And in fact, I always like that joke that but you guys bomb people, and I tell them, for me, every opportunity is an opportunity for power. I tell them that there's no such. Allah even condemns people with bomb. So let's be part of our community. Let's bread was made. Let's create our own platform. The world has not created anything for us. Let's create our own table. This is a time for women to be, I mean, pioneers in their own right. So let's just step up and just proud to be Muslim and set up our own ground and foundation.
Mhm. All right. I think it is easier said than done, but it is doable. And
Yeah.
with time and the correct resources, we can create our own spaces. But also, we don't want to be exclusive. We want to be inclusive. We want
No,
to be
no,
part of
no.
the
No,
community. We want to be part of the country as well. So we don't just want to take up those spaces or create our own spaces. We want to be,
no, no, no.
you know,
We want
as part
to
of the whole.
correct, correct. It is
Mhm.
what that's what I mean exactly. This thing is typical, just like in internet, the most interesting industries are dominated by males. So it's already a down negative for the Muslim woman, and even worse, black Muslim women get into industries that are dominated by men. So you cannot go in there. Perhaps you should consider creating another one, but being equally competitive, if I can use that word. Participating, if I can.
Mhm. All right. We do not have much time on our hands, but because it is World Hijab Day, what message would you like to send to the world regarding hijab? And let's start with Pumelele.
I would like to say that, own it. As they always say, own it. Know who you are so that when you go out into the world, you are not doubtful. When you meet people who aren't in hijab, they must not make you feel less of a human than you are. And as well, in South Africa, we live in a very beautiful country. We must take full advantage of our constitution, because it's one of the countries whereby we are allowed to wear our hijab. So when we find ourselves in workspaces and environments, let's find out what's the policies regarding the companies, the policies regarding the work area, because in South Africa you actually are allowed to express yourself in terms of your religion. So I think education is very important when it comes to Islam, and as the first command was Iqra. So I think we need to educate ourselves enough of our rights as Muslims in this country, because no one can make us feel unwelcome in our own country. We are South African
Yes,
Muslims. We are here. And thank
Mhm.
you.
yes.
All right. Shukran for your comment. Anisa?
I do apologize. I'm just having a bit of technical issues, so my video is just off.
All right.
However, my message to our fellow hijabis or our fellow Muslims is to continue representing the religion, regardless of what happens. The representation is greater. The history that we carry whilst wearing the hijab is greater than what the current status quo is. But like the previous sister said, it's to continue continue, you know, fighting for our rights in these spaces, because it's not just about us now, but it is about us making way for the coming generation. To our allies and progressive friends, comrades, compatriots who are with us in the struggle, yeah, it's just to thank them for being there with us. And to those who feel that hijab is a hindrance, it's just to say, you know, educate yourself about hijab, educate yourself about Islam, and don't always believe what is in the media, because I think as time goes on, we realize that what is sold to us, just like what is sold to us about, you know, our leaders or how Black people are demonized, the same was done with Islam. So let's just carry on educating ourselves. Thank you.
All
Sure.
right, shukran so much. And Karabo, what is your message to the world at large?
Wow. Means you don't get through those. um, be you. I think when you become yourself, when you invest more into yourself, work your own path, and most important, obey your maker and be proud. Be proud, stand up and be counted. And be happy being Muslim. I mean, no great blessing than that. So I'm a South African, and most important, I'm a Muslim woman. So I feel very honored. The honor that I feel for just being Muslim is greater than my own understanding. Like, I just wish that people will just come through and just see us as ambassadors in all that we do. So I'm just proud to be Black or African, South African, Muslim. So people must just be proud and wear it in their colors and, yeah, in everywhere that they can, and celebrate it on a daily basis.
Yes, definitely. And the hashtag for this year is dressed, not oppressed. And you can continue sharing your comments with us to our WhatsApp line on 0617660355. Shukran for a great discussion, ladies, and have a wonderful day. Assalamu alaikum.
And you
Wa
too.
alaikum salam. Same to you.
Same to you. Thank you for having us.
Shukran.
Right, those were my guests for today, Karabo Asya Madiba, Pumlele Sakina Dulama, and Anisa Mazimpaka, unpacking the challenges that Black Muslim women face in South Africa as hijabis. Not just Black Muslim women, but Muslim women in general, and their advice there, you know, own it, own your spaces, own your hijab, continue representing, and be you, be comfortable in your own skin and in your hijab. 4 minutes past 12, you are listening to the Mid Morning Talk on Salam Media. We will be right back.